I never thought my life would turn into a cheesy romantic comedy, complete with a fake relationship trope, but here we are. It all started with a simple, almost absurd proposition. A rich girl, practically a princess, wanted to hire me, a self-proclaimed nerd, to be her fake boyfriend. And get this, she wasn't just offering a few $100. She was talking about an amount that could pay off my student loans and then some. Was I wrong for even considering it? Would you have done the same thing if a golden ticket to financial freedom landed in your lap? Even if it meant pretending to be in love with someone you barely knew? Let me take you back to how this whole whirlwind began. My name is Alex, and for most of my 23 years, I've pretty much lived inside my own head, surrounded by books, code, and the comforting glow of a computer screen. My natural habitat is a quiet corner of the university library. And my idea of a wild Friday night involves debugging a particularly stubborn piece of code, or diving deep into a new fantasy novel. Socially, I'm present. I have a small, loyal group of friends who appreciate my sarcastic wit and uncanny ability to fix any tech issue. But I'm far from the life of the party. My fashion sense leans heavily towards comfort over style. And my dating history is best described as a short story with a lot of ellipses. I was just trying to get through my computer science degree, dreaming of a stable, if unspectacular, future in tech. Then came Tiffany. Tiffany Du Bois. The name itself practically shimmered with privilege. She was everything I wasn't. Effortlessly beautiful, impeccably dressed, and exuding an aura of confidence that could disarm a hostile diplomat. She was the kind of girl who floated through campus, leaving a trail of whispered admiration and envious glances in her wake. Her father, a real estate mogul, practically owned half the city, and her Instagram feed was a curated masterpiece of exotic vacations, designer clothes, and glamorous parties. Our paths, by all rights, should never have crossed beyond a polite nod in a crowded hallway, if that. Yet, one Tuesday afternoon, as I was attempting to wrestle a particularly belligerent printer into submission in the computer lab, she appeared. I remember looking up, my glasses askew, printer toner smudged on my cheek, to see her standing there, a vision in a silk blouse and tailored trousers, looking utterly out of place amidst the humming machines and the faint smell of stale coffee. My first thought was that she'd mistook me for a tech support intern. My second thought was that I probably looked like a troll who had just emerged from under a bridge. She cleared her throat, a delicate sound that still managed to cut through the whirring of the servers. "Alex, right?" she asked, her voice surprisingly soft, not at all the imperious tone I might have expected. I mumbled a confirmation, feeling a blush creep up my neck. She then proceeded to explain that she'd heard I was good with computers, and more importantly, discreet. My ears perked up at the last word. Discretion usually meant something interesting, or at least, something that involved a broken laptop and a desperate deadline. But what she proposed next was far beyond a simple tech fix. She explained in a hushed but urgent tone that she was in a bind. Her family was, to put it mildly, intense. Her parents were constantly pushing her towards suitable matches, which in their world meant someone from an equally affluent and influential family. The problem was, Tiffany had no interest in their chosen suitors. She had a plan, a desperate, last-ditch effort to buy herself some time and peace from their relentless matchmaking. She needed a boyfriend. A fake one. Someone completely outside their social circle. Someone her parents would deem unsuitable, in the most spectacular way possible, thus forcing them to back off. And that someone, she decided, was me. I remember just staring at her, my mouth probably hanging open. Me? The guy who spent Friday nights debating the merits of different programming languages? The guy whose idea of dressing up was wearing a clean t-shirt? I pointed to myself. Me, I croaked, finally finding my voice. She nodded, a determined glint in her eyes. "You're perfect," she said, almost to herself. "Smart, unintimidating, and completely not their type. Plus, you're good at pretending to be aloof, which will just make it more convincing that I'm trying to rebel." I was, to say the least, flummoxed. She then laid out the details. The job would last for a month, maybe two. I'd attend a few family dinners, a couple of social events, and basically act as her loving, but slightly rebellious boyfriend. In return, she offered a sum that made my jaw drop. $50,000. $50,000. For acting. My entire student loan debt flashed before my eyes, followed by the possibility of finally upgrading my ancient PC. It was a ludicrous offer, but an undeniably tempting one. I told her I needed time to think. I spent the next 48 hours in a constant state of internal debate. My friends were incredulous. You're going to pretend to be dating Tiffany Dubois? The Tiffany Dubois. Mark, my most pragmatic friend, asked, raising an eyebrow. Sarah, ever the romantic, saw it as a potential meet-cute. Maybe you'll actually fall in love, she chirped, making me roll my eyes. But I wasn't thinking about romance. I was thinking about financial freedom. The practicality of it outweighed the awkwardness. $50,000 was life-changing money for me. It could set me up for years, give me a real head start after graduation. So, against my better judgment, but with a firm grip on my desire for a debt-free future, I agreed. Our first date was a hilarious disaster. We met at a fancy restaurant, one I would never have stepped foot in otherwise. Tiffany, looking stunning as always, had given me a crash course in rich people etiquette, which mostly involved not putting my elbows on the table and pretending to understand the difference between all the various forks. I tried my best, but I was acutely aware of my ill-fitting suit and my discomfort in such an opulent setting. We spent most of the evening discussing our backstory. We were supposedly a secret romance that had blossomed over a shared love for obscure indie films. We practiced flirting, which felt incredibly awkward. She'd give me a coy smile, and I'd respond with a mumbled compliment, both of us stifling giggles. It felt like we were rehearsing for a play, which in essence we were. The real test came when I met her parents. Mr. and Mrs. Dubois were exactly as I imagined. Impeccably dressed, radiating an air of polite but firm superiority. Mr. Dubois had a handshake that felt like it could crush small stones. And Mrs. Dubois had eyes that seemed to analyze your very soul. They looked me up and down, their expressions a mixture of confusion and thinly veiled disdain. I tried to be charming, intelligent, and just rebellious enough to be believable, but not so much that I'd be thrown out. Tiffany, bless her heart, played her part beautifully. She would lean into me, touch my arm, and give me adoring glances, all while subtly baiting her parents. Alex and I just adore spending quiet evenings at home, discussing philosophical texts, she'd say, knowing full well my idea of a philosophical text was the instruction manual for my new graphics card. The more uncomfortable her parents became, the more she'd escalate the affection, making it clear she was deliberately choosing someone so utterly unsuited for their world. It was a masterful performance. The weeks that followed were a surreal blur of fake dates, elaborate family functions, and hushed strategy sessions. I learned to navigate their world, or at least, to convincingly pretend I belonged. I learned the art of polite small talk, the intricacies of designer brands I couldn't afford, and how to look vaguely interested in conversations about corporate mergers. Tiffany and I developed a strange sort of camaraderie. We were partners in crime, united by our shared deception. We'd spend hours in her lavish apartment, poring over event guest lists, practicing our inside jokes, and refining our love story. Beneath the fake affection, a genuine friendship began to form. We discovered we both had a dry sense of humor, a shared love for bad sci-fi movies, and a mutual appreciation for really good pizza. I found myself genuinely enjoying her company, and I think, surprisingly, she enjoyed mine. She was smart, funny, and despite her privileged upbringing, surprisingly down-to-earth when she wasn't putting on a show for her parents. As the month wore on, the lines between our fake relationship and our budding friendship started to blur. There were moments, during a particularly intense charade at a charity gala, when her hand would accidentally linger in mine a little too long, or when we'd catch each other's eyes across a crowded room and share a genuine, knowing smile. I even started to feel a pang of something more when I saw her laughing with another guy, a real suitor her parents were pushing. It was confusing, and frankly a little terrifying. I was a nerd, she was a rich girl. This was a business transaction, a performance. Nothing more. Right? Then came the grand finale of our charade. Her parents' annual summer retreat at their sprawling lakeside estate. This was where the breakup was supposed to happen. A dramatic culmination designed to solidify their disapproval and give Tiffany the space she craved. But the days leading up to it were filled with an unexpected tension. We were spending almost every waking moment together, strategizing, rehearsing, and just being. One evening, after a particularly grueling family dinner where her father had practically grilled me about my career prospects, we were sitting by the lake, the cool night air wrapping around us. She leaned her head on my shoulder, something she'd done countless times as part of our act, but this time, it felt different. Her hair smelled faintly of expensive shampoo, and I could feel the warmth of her against me. My heart was thudding in my chest. "You know," she murmured, her voice soft, "you're actually pretty good at this. You make a surprisingly convincing boyfriend." I just cleared my throat, unable to form a coherent response. I was too busy trying to ignore the chaotic flutter in my stomach. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. We were days away from the planned breakup, the grand finale of our elaborate scheme. But what if I didn't want it to end? What if the fake feelings had started to become real? Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have stuck to the plan, taken the money, and walked away from a potentially complicated situation? Or would you have risked everything to see if there was something more between the rich girl and the nerd? The night before the breakup, everything came to a head. We were in her room, going over the final details of our performance. The plan was for us to have a huge public fight, culminating in me storming off in a huff, leaving her parents utterly convinced that I was a completely unsuitable match, thus cementing her desire for something more authentic in her relationships, ironically. But as we were rehearsing, the words felt hollow. The fake anger, the manufactured drama, it all felt wrong. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not just the rich girl playing a game, but the intelligent, kind, and surprisingly vulnerable woman who had become my friend. And I realized, with a jolt that went straight to my core, that I was falling for her. Hard. I put the script down. "Tiffany," I said, my voice hoarse, "I can't do this anymore. Not like this." She looked at me, her eyes wide. "What do you mean? We're so close. Just one more day." I shook my head. "The breakup, the fight, it feels wrong. Because I don't want to break up with you." The words tumbled out before I could second guess myself, raw and honest. Silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the chirping of crickets outside. Her expression was unreadable. Fear coiled in my stomach. Had I just ruined everything? Had I jeopardized the money, our friendship, everything? Then, a slow smile spread across her face, a genuine, radiant smile that reached her eyes. "You don't," she whispered, a hint of something hopeful in her voice. I shook my head again, my heart pounding like a drum. "No. I actually really like you, Tiffany. A lot. This whole fake boyfriend thing, it made me realize." She walked over to me, her hand reaching out to touch my arm, her touch sending a jolt through me. "I like you too, Alex," she confessed, her voice barely audible. "More than I ever expected. This whole thing, it's been the most real relationship I've ever had." And then she kissed me. It wasn't a fake, performative kiss for her parents. It was soft, hesitant at first, then deepened, filled with an unexpected warmth and a rush of emotions that took my breath away. It was messy and real and absolutely perfect. The next morning, the breakup happened, but not in the way we'd planned. Instead of a dramatic fight, Tiffany announced to her parents, very calmly, that she was done with their matchmaking. She told them she had found someone she genuinely cared about, someone who saw her for who she was, not for her family's name or fortune. And then she introduced me, not as the unsuitable rebel, but as Alex, her boyfriend. Her real boyfriend. The look on her parents' faces was priceless. A mixture of shock, confusion, and a reluctant acknowledgement of her defiance. Mr. Dubois still looked like he wanted to crush my hand, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Perhaps grudging respect for my audacity, or more likely for Tiffany's. It wasn't easy. Her parents initially tried to pull every string imaginable to separate us, but Tiffany was unwavering. She fought for our relationship, making it clear that I wasn't just a phase or a rebellion, but someone she truly cared for. Slowly, gradually, they started to accept it, or at least tolerate it. They saw how happy she was, how genuinely comfortable she was with me. And I, in turn, learned to navigate their world with a little more confidence, because I had Tiffany by my side. As for the $50,000, I refused to take it. I told her that what we had become was worth more than any amount of money. She smiled and said she understood, but she did insist on paying off my student loans as a thank you for being there for her, which I reluctantly accepted, because even a proud nerd isn't entirely immune to pragmatic financial assistance. Our relationship isn't a fairy tale in the traditional sense. It's quirky, it's unconventional, and it's still met with raised eyebrows in certain social circles. But it's real. We laugh, we argue, we support each other's dreams. I still spend my nights coding, and she still attends glamorous events, but now we do it together, or at least we come home to each other. So, that's my story. The one where the rich girl hired the nerd as a fake boyfriend, and they accidentally fell in love. It's proof that sometimes, the most unexpected paths lead to the most wonderful destinations. Like this video if you were on my side, and subscribe for more stories like this. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Do you think Tiffany and I were crazy to go for it? I'll see you all in the next story.